Welcome to PowerUp podcast, the podcast that seeks to empower and dismantle, giving us the power and confidence to question, deconstruct, rebuild, and expand in life. I'm your host, AmaRouge, voiceover and multidisciplinary artist, well-being advocate, food and book geek with over 14 years of movement-centered experience.
I am your host, Mesma, artist, choreographer, yogi and coach with a passion for alchemy, creativity, transformation and workplace wellness.
We recognise that we can't dismantle and empower or be empowered without first learning ourselves, diving deeper to unlearn the harmful, restrictive and unprogressive. It's an ongoing practice and journey for us all, which is why we created this podcast.
Our show features guests doing the work to enlighten, deconstruct and power up in their own magical ways.
We're going to be having conversations around the power of healing, transformation, well-being and creativity, and how they feed our personal and collective evolution, how they help us power up. Last week we spoke to the brilliant Adele Cleaver about play and talked about the definition of play, which was new to Ella and I, and took a dive into why it's important for us, what it brings us, how intrinsic it is to us as humans, and why we really should be playing more and how we can do that. So today, Ella and I wanted to follow up from that and talk about play in relation to our lives a little bit more and talk about what we've been observing in terms of the landscape of play. Now we've had a little bit more of an introduction into it. So we thought we would start with the question, why play?
Why play? And I wanted to share a story, like as we've been diving more into this topic, which I'm so glad, I feel like on so many levels, this has just enriched my practice to be diving into play so deeply. But I reflected on this and I just thought it's a wonderful moment that I would love to share. So I went back to Bristol, my hometown, last week or the week before to visit my family, and they have a garden, which is really nice and quite rare. But I realised I don't actually know many people with gardens these days, and they get really frustrated because they have this fox that seems to always just be in their garden, and they're not into the fox at all. And this fox was in the garden when I was there. And I was a bit intrigued, so I decided to pop outside and just see what would happen if I just like slowly approached this fox, which is clearly not shy. And we ended up playing. It was crazy. We actually played a game of kind of like chase, but we were just doing it facing one another and running sideways and then freezing and then running back and then freezing. It was incredible. Incredible moment of play, right? Having listened to, kind of prompted by Adele and a few other things I've been listening to this talk about the neuroscience of play, which is a talk by Dr. Stuart Brown, who was the founder of the National Institute for Play. And he was talking about how mammals need to play and how often you see these phenomenons in nature where you might see like a polar bear playing with a dog that maybe in a normal situation they would fight each other, or even an extreme example, they showed pretty sure it was a buffalo playing with a peacock, like something insane like this. And just thinking about these beautiful moments of play, that moment of connection with that fox for me reminded me, and I hope it also reminded my parents who are not into the fox at all, of its humanness. And I'm using that word because I think we forget that actually we can learn so much from nature, and actually we can reconnect in such a beautiful way. So they speak a lot in the talk that I just mentioned about how our brains actually fire when we play, that it's a way to stay young. It's a way to stop some of those neurological diseases that can affect us later in life, because when we play, we experience joy. And what a great experience, right? How much better is our life when we're experiencing joy?
Yeah,
so for
absolutely.
me, play is really about connecting to heart and connecting to joy.
I think in a lot of the people I know, there's a desire for pleasure, but there's so much resistance almost to allowing ourselves to fully enjoy pleasure, because there's this understanding that pleasure or joy should come after hard work. should come after some kind of output that allows us to deserve the joy or the pleasure.
Yes.
And actually it shouldn't be in relation to how much work have we done, how much output have we created. It should be an equal element within all of that.
Yeah. And I think even that connection to thinking that good work is hard, you know, that actually, certainly for me, like in my work as a choreographer and in my work in the studio, I think it's really important to connect into play and to understand how much more in flow we are when we're listening and when we're being aware and when we're allowing those moments and those connections and those opportunities to laugh and so on. And I've been noticing this a lot as well with my coaching clients, this kind of stepping into or becoming aware of it can be flowing. It doesn't have to be, life doesn't have to be hard all the time. And that we very much are brought up in this capitalist world thinking that, you know, hard work, success means hard work. But what if it doesn't? What if it means listening to your body? What if it means following your intuitions? What if it means creating beautiful connections? And I think that's for me one of the other joys of play. The other reasons why I play is it helps me to listen and to notice and to be very much alive. And, you know, that opportunity or that experience with that fox, that was because I was listening and I was testing and I was checking, and we ended up having this beautiful dance. And I think that's the opportunity of life, right? It's the opportunity to dance through life, not to work hard through life, but to experience joy.
And not to miss the moments, the opportunities for that joy, because we're so busy not being present. We're so busy being in the future or the past.
Yeah, we're so busy doing and not being.
Yeah, exactly. Why do we stop learning to play? Because we learnt from Adele that it's something that all humans do. It's something that's innate in us. Studies, as she said, studies have shown that children all over the world, in all different cultures and communities, will play if they're given time and space. And Gwendolyn Smith, in a story on the Welcome Collections website, all around play, says the play instinct is innate, but if it's not given the right conditions to flourish, it disappears. So why do we stop learning to play? Is it because we're not given the right conditions for it to flourish? What do you think?
Interesting. I think there's a number of factors. I think it's a lot to do with society and what we learn. In, you know, even if we do our best not to internalize the messages that we're getting, I think it is impacting. It does have an effect on us. And I think many of us, as Adele mentioned last week, we kind of wake back up of like, hang on a minute, this doesn't feel quite right, which for me connects into the heroine's journey and that coming back to the feminine and coming back home to ourselves and kind of questioning, like, is this really how I want to live my life? Doing what I've been told, doing what other people tell me to. I know for me, certainly there was this moment of kind of looking at most of my peers or most of my kind of parents' generation who worked 9-to-5 jobs and just thinking like, is that it? You know, is that, and I think it's very much connected to learning. I'm not disrespecting a 9-to-5 job, and I think that we can still be playful in any work that we do, but I think there's a lot of this conditioning around what is true for us. And interestingly, referring back to that video I mentioned, which is in the show notes, they did a study which possibly is not very ethical. I'm not sure, right? Ethical. Yeah, which possibly is not very ethical, on some rats, where they deprived some rats of the opportunity to play, to have rough and tumble experiences with other rats growing up, and others had that experience. And what they noticed was, well, it was quite severe actually. The effects were those rats that weren't able to play as children were actually less able to deal with the world, to fight off predators, to be able to look after themselves. And I'm thinking that how much is this true of us as human beings? How much does our opportunity to play affect our experiences, our interactions. And actually, interestingly, I've been reflecting on kind of where I play a lot. So I think I'm very playful. But one of the examples they gave in this talk was often like conversation, like maybe you're sitting in the pub and you have kind of a bit of banter. And I realized that's something I'm not particularly good at. I generally am like, oh, I don't have time for that. I'm going home. I don't tend to sit around for the banter. Yeah, isn't that interesting? So is that play? And are we just depriving ourselves of those opportunities to connect? And does that connect back into how we might, the areas that we might have developed in terms of play and the areas that perhaps we haven't? Or interestingly, again, like I think there's also kind of some shadow areas around play of, is it because it's going into more those shadows of perhaps bullying or, that kind of, those kinds of spaces? Is it that there's something about them that perhaps isn't nurturing?
And also, is it even just that to the individual, so to you in that situation, that's actually just not something that feels or registers as play for you? I remember when we were recording with Adele and she said play is very individual. And so I wonder, is it that to you, that's not play?
Yeah. Yeah, I know that I'd rather be playing. I think I am. I think I am a bit of a big kid. I think Amma probably agrees.
Yeah,
I love to
super
play.
playful. You're super playful. That's one thing actually I've always noticed about you. And I think I've noticed even more starkly because I've noticed it in relation to me. And I think I'm quite serious as my kind of overarching, I guess, layer. I definitely think I can be quite silly and quite playful.
You can definitely be very silly and very playful.
Yeah.
I can vouch for
and
that.
I think they're two different things as well, like silliness and playfulness, like two separate elements. And I think I can embody both. But I think in terms of what comes out most and first tends to be my more serious side. And it's really interesting. A couple of things come up for me. So I remember doing a 1 month job with our friend Anna in Wales, and we were together all of the time. And Anna's also quite playful and can be really silly and access those sides of herself really naturally. And I remember her saying to me about 2/3 of the way into the job, Amita, you have such a strong silly side. You need to let her out more. And it was something that stuck with me. And I was like, yeah, do you know what? I do really have a really silly and playful side. And she doesn't often come out. And it really made me think about why. And I think it's because often I don't have the conditions around me to tap into that side of myself, or for that side of myself to come out, and even to come out for longer periods of time. So it kind of tends to come out in flashes. And it's something that now I'm really willing to discover more as an adult, how much play is in my life and how I can increase it, and just bringing out my playful nature more. I think because, well, I think at this moment I'm receiving a lot of messages around play, and I think that's a very clear indication to me that it's a really great time for me to invite it back into my life. And we were really fortunate that Adele gave us some tips for adults to invite play into their life. And if you haven't listened to that episode, do go back and listen to it, because it's full of so much richness and so many wonderful offerings for how you can have more play in your life and what it can do for you. But I'm definitely in that space, and I'm really excited at cultivating play as an adult.
Beautiful.
And thanks. In preparation for this episode, I was thinking about how playful I am. And one of the things I've realised that I always just took as something really strange and just kind of a quirk that I had, but now I realise it's a way for me to exercise the playful part of my personality. I have a thing for small spaces. Whenever I'm out, and I find a small space, I have to like climb into it or crawl into it.
Amazing.
And I just find it really hilarious. And I need to get in there. And there's so many examples of it. I can remember when we went to Ayakanta for your birthday, Ella, and there was a small space in the bathroom, and it was where the mirrors were, and I had to climb above the sink. Just to nestle in there. And the same when I was in Oslo in Norway, I went to a museum and there was this really cool section of the museum which had stairs to go up to another level, but along the stairwell had this strange kind of corner and nook and little precipice almost, and I had to go in there, and I just had to stand in all the different corners.
I love it.
And the same in Barcelona when we went to see one of Gaudi's buildings. There was this tiny curved hole, and I was like, I'm going in there.
I feel like a little exhibition of Amma in small spaces coming on.
Totally, I have to find all the pictures. But definitely I now recognise that is an element of me expressing play.
And it probably fits in one of the 16 types of play that Adele mentioned last week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not sure what one it would be. I have a question, Amma, as well.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned like the conditions need to be right for you to play. And I'm also going to offer this to the listener of what are the conditions that you need or enjoy to feel playful, to be able to play. Might you have any idea, Amma?
I think in a practical sense, I think I was going to say a clear day, but not even necessarily a day. I need time, free time. I think is really vital for me to be able to play, because it stops me compartmentalizing the day in my mind and putting restrictions on what I want to do or what I'm about to do. I find that if I don't have time, then I tend to default into, I'll do that when I have lots more time, or I don't have as much time as I would want to do A, B, or C, so I won't do it at all. You know, I don't want to start that and not be able to really get into it. Yeah. So time, open time is really important for me. Recently, I cleared a whole day and just played with my nephew. My other nephew, who's older, he's 9, and we went to the park, we went for ice cream, we went for waffles, and I was sliding down the slide with him and climbing all over the climbing frame, and he said to me, I can't believe you're sliding on the slide, Auntie, and you're 32. Adults don't do this. And he was just amazed. Disclaimer, I'm not 32. But he was he was amazed. And just his response really made it evident how much children don't see adults play and how much adults don't play in general. And for me, though, sliding down the slide was something really natural, because as soon as I see a park, I want to go on the swings and I want to go on the slide, and I want to climb. Definitely
playful. There's definitely some natural play in you.
That's never left me. But I think I need time, and I think I need to feel unburdened. I think when I feel unburdened and I have time, then I can easily slip into play.
Yes. And I've realised I think I need to feel safe. You know, that linking back into that pub story, I think it's also based on some experiences in pubs where perhaps I haven't felt safe. And so it's come back to, I want to be in an environment, in a place with people who I know I can be silly, and that's okay. That's welcomed in the space.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. But linking back to your, was it the slide or the swing slide?
The slide.
Linking back to your slide story and just this joy that children have. And I find I love hanging out with your nephew. He's so wonderful and so playful. And I just love to observe that, and also to play with that, you know, to kind of like test how much can I be imaginative? How much can I be silly? Yeah. Is there a point where they're like, no, that's not right? But yeah, just thinking about how much we can observe and how much we can learn from children. and even the opportunity for parents. Adele, for example, is so wonderful at playing with her child. And I think there's something we can learn from children, actually, that we can be in wonder and we can really experience play via them and with them teaching us.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think allowing them to teach us really takes us out of the more kind of negative ego state that we can find ourselves in as well. And it allows us just to relate on a real human to human level and remember that we always have more to learn, and the teacher can look really different. And it doesn't matter whether they're younger or older than us. We just open ourselves to it.
Yes. I'm excited that one of my teachers is the mother of one of my teachers is coming on PowerUp podcast very soon. We're going to be speaking to the amazing Danielle of Lioness Wellness.
Yeah, very excited for that episode. We're going to be talking with Danny and my brother Ben about parental roles and play. So we're super excited about that. And then we're going to be talking to two other incredible humans about hands-on play and virtual play. So if any of that resonates with you, be sure to tune in to the episodes every Sunday. We are here as always. And a little link for all of you to look up is Kidding You on YouTube. I discovered them recently on Instagram, and they have a YouTube where they play, and they have different episodes where they play games with adults. And from what I understand, the whole premise is to connect with the child in you. So go and have a look and see
link
what they're about.
The show notes below.
So Ella and I will definitely be playing more, and not just in a one-off way, but we're weaving it into our lives far more. I mean, it's in Ella's life a lot already. I'm going to be learning from her and weaving it into mine a lot. And we'll see how that impacts my life in a year's time from now, week's time.
I'm excited for the journey, for sure.
Me too.
And I think we can never have too much play. So I'm going to be playing a lot more, for sure.
Yeah. I love it. Yes.
Thank you for listening. You can connect to us and our guests via the links in each episode's show notes. Before you go, we invite you to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the goodness to come. And if you enjoyed today, perhaps tell a friend to tell a friend. We are always grateful for you, our listeners, for our fabulous guests, and to everyone who has contributed to and been a part of our journey here.
Our music is by Tomo Carter. Everything else is brought to you by us, the PowerUp Power Team.
I'm Mesma.
I am AmaRouge. And we are PowerUp Podcast.